Welcome and welcome back to my channel, Beauty. If you are new to my channel, my name is Juliana. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the new palette, well, one of the new palettes from Playing Makeup by Yolondo. So this one is called Vigorously Palette. So she's actually got like a few new palettes coming up. Three of them are like revamps of our old palettes. I'll try and put pictures up. I think it's the Jamrock Rebirth, the matte palette, and the pastel palette, the Washina palette. She's going to be rejiggling them. Two of them are already out. So it's just the Washina palette, the remake of the Washina palette that is not out yet. But this one is an entirely new palette, and yeah, it's called Vigorously Palette. So as I'm filming today, the palette is not actually out. I got mine from a mystery box, and this is the inside of the palette. Yeah, so she did like a new palette kind of mystery box, so I knew that the palette that will be there would not be an old one that I already have. It's going to be an entire one, so I did get that. I was actually expecting it to be one of the other ones, not this particular one, not the Vigorously palette, but I'm quite happy because I would have preferred this rather than any other new palette. If you are following me on my Instagram page, I actually put this palette on my story, I believe over a month ago, even before she posted it, because I follow her on Facebook, so she revealed it, so I kind of knew that this palette was coming. And I definitely knew that I wanted it, so I've been on the lookout for the palette. This is a palette on my eyes, although I did not film it, but this is what I use, because if I had filmed it, I would have been a mess, because I wanted to use all the shades all at the same time. So I ended up doing two different looks on my eye. I don't know if you noticed, but or you can see it, but I did two different looks. So all the colors on this eye are completely different to what's on this eye. Okay, on this eye, my main mattes were this one, and I went for this shade over here, and I kind of like just tailored it towards this dark shade. The common factor on both of my lid is this shimmer, which is the one at the center of my lid. In terms of my inner corner, I kind of focused on the blues for this one, and I focused on the green here for this look. But yeah, I just wanted to get this out of my system before I do a proper look, because I would have been a mess. It's such a beautiful palette that I just felt like using all the shades at the same time. Such a gorgeous palette. So today's video is actually going to be swatching at least all of the shimmers plus some mattes, and as well as compare it with some of our palettes, and we look at another brand that I think this palette is very similar to as well. Okay, let's get with the swatches first. So remember, I'm going to be doing the shimmers first, so starting from the top row, I'm going to swatch all the shimmers and then go downwards. Okay, first for shimmers, I'm going to be starting from the back of my hand. So this time around, these shimmers are different. They are potty, they are yummy. They're not like a typical average shimmer. These ones are actually exceptional, and they do remind me of a brand which we will see in the comparison. So these are the first four shade. Okay, the next four, they are just so yummy, and this is the one I have on both lids as a common ground. But they are beautiful and gorgeous, and I like the color story so far, so good as well. Okay, the last four shimmers. They are beautiful and unique colors. I mean, look at the blue. Look at the blue. It's gorgeous. Yeah, so there are a few of the shades that actually really stand out, as in they're just beautiful and unique. Like this one here, this blue right here is so gorgeous, and this one, they are beautiful. Some of them have got like flecks in there as well. Don't know if you can see from this one. It's got like different colors of flecks in there. Well, yeah, that is all the shimmers in the Vigorously palette. So let's swatch some of the mattes now. Alright, these are all the swatches of the pastel shades on the top row. So let me start with this one. Put that one upside down. So even as pastel shades, you can see that they are really pigmented, and it's not too dark as well. If you have lighter skin color, it's not too dark, you can just use like a lighter hand, and if you have darker skin color, it still shows up. So I used two different shades in my inner corner, and they were pastel. They just appeared well. They showed up on my skin tone. Okay, second row matte. So these are not pastel, but they're kind of light, graduating a little bit from pastel shades into normal colors. So I just wanted to show you this row as well. can see the way they kind of like take off really from the first one, which was all completely pastel. So these are like your medium tone shades, if you like. Now let's swatch some of the darker colors. Okay, second to the last batch I'm swatching. I wanted to actually really swatch this one because it's very unique. It's not red and it's not orange. It's a perfect mixture of the two colors and it's quite unique. It's on one of my lids today. I really enjoyed using it. Yeah, that's that shade. It's so gorgeous. And that blue. So we are almost getting there. The next lot I'm going to swatch are really the dark colors. Okay, we are now on to the darkest shades in the palette, and I'm going to just try and put them here, and we can just kind of see the difference. I'm just going to quickly build on the swatches properly. Alright, it wasn't a case that they weren't pigmented, I just needed to pull them down so that we can properly compare them. But these are the darkest shades in the palette, and you can see the graduation. So it literally went from pastel to medium tone range to proper shades and then to the darkening shades. It's perfect. So perfect. And also the good thing is that that's actually how the palette is made as well. So it's graduating. You know how you see some shades and then the pastel are somewhere at the bottom or in the middle? Yeah, this kind of like definitely graduated from lighter, mid-tone, proper shades and then darkening shades. Even though it's kind of like mixed with the shimmers, but it's absolutely gorgeous. So these are the mattes in the palette. This is a really beautiful and unique palette. When I saw this palette, when she sneak peeked it, I was just so happy. And I don't know, I think any shades or any palette that comes out that looks like candies, I'm always gonna like it. I mean, look at the color. Just look at the color. What more do you want? It's absolutely beautiful, and it's colorful matte as well as colorful shimmers. So it's definitely a mixture of both colorful matte and colorful shimmers, and the shimmer seems to definitely match the mattes in the palette as well. It's beautiful, so no question about that. The question now is it worth your money, or is it something similar to what you already have in your collection? Now I have a lot of Pimby palettes, and to me I can definitely see some of these shades in our existing palettes. Yeah, obviously there are one or two shades that might not be there, but for me I see similarities, but I still wanted it because it's all in one palette, so it's gorgeous. Now, one thing that is unique to this palette is the shimmer textures and the shimmer formulas, and I'm going to just bring it closer. As you can see, you see the pottiness. Now she doesn't have that formula. She has maybe one or two in a newer palette, but not for the entire palette. The entire of this palette is mainly pot shimmers. There are only two shades that kind of not look like potty, but they're like chrome. So this one I think is a chrome formula, and then this one is like your in between the potty and normal shimmer. So those are different. With the rest, they are definitely different. So they are like your Beauty Bay shimmers and Glamlite shimmer. I'm going to be comparing the Vigorously palette to 4 of Pimby's palette, which I've looked at all the palettes are from her, and this seems to be like the most kind of similar. Now Relentless is a new palette, and you can see maybe one color or two is a Relentless palette. I believe that the Relentless palette anyway has dupes from our other old palette. All she did was like mix more colors to it, but I do think that Relentless has some colors that are already in our existing palette. But these 4 to me are quite peculiar in terms of similarities to the new Vigorously palette. So I'm going to start with this one. So this is a collaboration palette, and it's the Decay Serenity palette. Okay, before I go into the comparison, one thing I have to say about this palette is, I don't want to forget, so I'll say it now, is they stain a lot on the white surface. So the material of this is quite different. Now if you compare to this one, this is quite glossy, so the stain doesn't really go so much on the kind of lining, I want to say the frame of the palette, whereas the formula on the Vigorously palette is stains so easily. So it's not like glossed, or it's like a mixture of gloss and some other material, I don't know, but it does stain. And ordinarily using it today, the surrounding of the shades, any shade I pick up, they were already stained. So that's one thing that is peculiar about this one. Alright, now holding these two palettes, now let's compare. So if you look at this, you will see that there is similarity, especially the dark shades are quite similar to this palette, and I'm going to point out which ones are similar. Okay, not to waste too much time, I'm just going to swatch 3 colors. So it's this one, it's similar, this blue here, as well as this green. So Serenity palette swatch first, and then similar colors in the new Vigorously palette. So that's that blue and the green. So again, they look similar in the pan, but looking at this, they are definitely different. So they do look similar, but not exactly the same, especially these two. So this looks more brown and this looks more white. Now this palette does have the similar color. I'm just going to wipe this brown and swap it. Alright, the similar shade in the new Vigorously palette. Swatching that beside each other, yeah, they do look different, but this is not as dark as this. My conclusion is that even though there are similar shades in the Serenity palette, they are still of quite different tone to the Vigorously palette. Now let's move on to another palette. Alright, this is the Jamrock Universal palette, which I think this is the one that she's revamped, and I'm just going to speed it up from here on. So looking at these and these, yeah, the colors look jumbled together and it looks like there are no similarities, but I do see similarities. I see that blue, the dark green, purple, yeah, they are quite similar. Yeah, even the red here, you've got similar shades here. So I mean, when you've got that many palettes in existence, there are bound to be similarities from one palette to the other. But the similarities I see are not that similar to kind of like say, oh, because you have this, you don't need this. Yeah, they don't stand out so much when you look at this palette and then you look at this one. This one looks too unique, you know, to be compared to this one, even though they are like, well, 4 or 5 shades are similar, if you understand what I mean. Yeah, so definitely if you wear me, I will still feel like I need this. Okay, I think this is the one she actually rejiggled, is the Rebirth palette, not the other one. So this is the one that she's actually redesigned. But whichever one it is, I'll just put on the screen. I know it's one of these Rebirth ones, but yeah, this is the Rebirth palette. And then next to the Vigorously palette. I mean, even when you look at the frame of the being golden, you would never think, oh yeah, there are similar shades. But yeah, there are not so many. I think it's just about 2 that I see, the blue and the red. And look at this. Can you see that blue? So they are similar, and then the red tones there and the orange here are similar to this, but that's as far as the Rebirth palette goes. So for me, I feel like the one that will really be compared in out of our existing palette will be the Washina palette, which is the pastel palette. I think that's going to be the one that everybody thinks, oh yeah, it's similar, but this is the inside of the Washina palette. Now let's compare that to the Vigorously palette. You can see that they are different. As much as there are similar shades in here, if you look at this is more pastel-y kind of like, whereas this is like a totally mixed palette. Yeah, fine, there are pastel shades in the top, but all the pastel shades are actually different to what's in this palette. You know, she kind of knows what she's doing, I would say. She changed the tone. If anything is actually similar, I believe is this blue. This blue and this green will probably be the most similar to the Vigorously palette. I mean, for a start, the Vigorously palette has no yellow in it. Has absolutely no yellow at all. So, and this has got like 2 yellows. So this is definitely on the pastel level, whereas this is kind of like of a mixed tone. Apart from the top row, it's definitely all mixed tone compared to this, which is got like white base, I want to say, within the shade. So if you look at the shades, they've got like white in them, so you can literally see that it's meant to be like pastel shades, whereas these shadows here, you don't really see the white. Even with the pastel shades on top, it's kind of like not very obvious to see the whiteness in them compared to the Washina palette, which you definitely can see the mixture of white. I don't know how to describe it. So this is meant to be like a medium toned kind of palette. Even with the pastel shade, it's still medium toned in terms, you know, when they say black base, multichrome or something, these are not white based, so they are pigmented, medium tone based to make it kind of totally different. You will get the totally different kind of effect with Washina palette and the Vigorously palette. Okay, swatching 4 shades out of the Washina palette that I feel are similar to the Vigorously palette. See what I mean by white based? Yeah, that is beautiful. Just gonna spread that across. So let's compare to the Vigorously palette now. Okay, these are the ones I feel are similar, and I'm just going to swatch beside. Okay, that is brighter, that's paler. Don't know if that was the right shade to compare, but okay, that one, these ones are very similar. These ones are similar as well, but this is just darker. This is, you can see the white base in these ones, yeah, compared to the Vigorously palette, even in the green. Yeah, so that is the difference, I think, between the pastel in the Washina palette and the pastel in the Vigorously palette. In terms of the dark shades in here, this purple, it's not similar at all to the one in the Vigorously palette. So this is more of a cool tone purple, whereas this one is more warmer, and this has got a bit of blue in it. So you can't really compare the dark shades, you could only compare the light shades. Now that's as far as I think there are similarities within the Pimby brand itself. So those 4 palettes, like I said, are the ones I feel like are similar. But in terms of other brands, the one palette that comes to mind is going to be the ice cream palette. I mean, even when I saw the Vigorously palette being released, I was thinking this reminds me of a palette, and it's the ice cream palette from Glamlite. And look at the inside of this palette. It is so similar to this, no doubt about that. You cannot, in fact, even Pimby cannot claim that the shimmers are not similar to Glamlite's shimmer, because they are really, in fact, they are 99% similar. Now, I'm happy that she's come out with this kind of shimmers in her own line, but yeah, definitely, looking at this, they are so similar. Now, the placement of the colors, the tone of the colors, they are different. Again, this pastel, they are white based. This is streaked, but you can definitely see the similarities between this palette, especially the shimmers. The shimmers were the first thing that I noticed, and I thought, okay, there's something peculiar about the shimmers in this one, and it's because they are definitely Glamlite's formula, no doubt about that. I'm going to swatch some shades. Okay, one thing I should possibly point out before I start swatching, that even though the formulas are different, what is happened is there's only about 2 shimmers in here that are similar to the colors in here. She made sure that the colors of the shimmer are quite different, but in terms of the formula, we're going to compare that. Alright, these are the shimmers in the Glamlite palette, and I'm going to just bring my fingers closer so you can see the formula on this. So swatching again, can you see? They are potty, they are yummy, and Glamlite's shimmers have always been one of my best when it comes to palettes. They've got one of the best formulas out there. Okay, you might have heard a sound from previous swatching. I forgot to kind of switch it over. I've got my fan going on in between my swatches because it's still quite warm, so I have to kind of like cool down myself before I continue. So I think I've forgotten twice, so if you hear in the video, I'm really sorry, but I'm hoping that you didn't hear. So these are the shimmers in the Vigorously palette, and as you can see, is the same formula. The colors might be different, but it's the same formula. I'm gonna bring my swatches closer and see. They're definitely the same shiny kind of formula that I've always loved from Glamlite. Now for me, it's not an issue because, I mean, brands copy each other, look at each other, develop from each other, kind of improve on each other at all times. But I just felt like I have to point that out. I mean, definitely when it comes to comparison, this is the most similar palette to the new Vigorously palette. I mean, it's tweety. The color tones, yeah, they are different, but in terms of the design, the formulas, yeah, and the concept, I would say it's definitely from Ice Cream palette from Glamlite. So my conclusion and my opinion is, if you have a lighter skin tone and you've already got Ice Cream palette, then you don't need this. Okay, where this kind of supersedes this for people of color is the pigmentation and the intensity of the colors in this palette. I love that for this palette. I mean, look at this. For people of color, the shimmers, the mattes, they make sense. They just make sense. It's the perfect, I would say, it's the perfect companion palette to the Ice Cream palette for people of color. But if you have lighter skin tone, honestly, I do not see you needing this palette, because The darker shades in this palette are quite dark. They are really dark. I had to use a smoky brush, you know, for this look. So if you are definitely of lighter skin tone, I would say, unless you like dark colors and you want to experience, you know, the colors of shimmers in this palette, then maybe you don't need both. But if you already have this, you don't need this. But as a person of color, or you definitely need this. Whether you have the ice cream palette or not, you definitely need this. And she's made this on mixable with the shades of the shimmers. I mean, let's watch the shimmer first. You saw the colors in that range. They are beautiful and gorgeous. And what she did to top this is the fact that she included chrome shades. So if you don't know what chrome is like in between feel of a multi-chrome or duochrome finish to a very beautiful shimmer. So it kind of like comes out even more beautiful than normal shimmers. So these are the ones I'm talking about, especially this one. This is definitely chromey. So if I just do that here, you can see the shiny effect. It looks like glass, broken glass. Yeah, that's how she kind of topped the formula, in my opinion. The fact that they are chrome, like perfect mixture of you know, your duochrome feel to shimmers, that for me made me so happy and made it so worth it to have this palette. Now some of the shades are very potty, so you've got to be very careful. Like this one is I'm gonna pan in no time. It's so soft. In fact, I think it's the softest in the whole of the palette. It's really soft, so you have to be very careful when you pick it up. Then next to this one, I didn't use that today. I bet if I had used that, it would be in the same state as this one as well. So yeah, be careful with those ones. Those ones are really soft. But I am well impressed with the shimmers in this palette. I'm telling you, if she comes out with a whole palette of these shimmers, you know, just the entire whole palette of the shimmer formula, oh my days, that's it. That will be my best shimmer palette ever. Alright, now that we've compared the palettes to both Align and as well as Glamlite palette, what do I really feel about this palette? Just to kind of wrap up my opinion, I don't like the fact that it's got like white easily stained background as the frame. I think that can be quite annoying. In terms of the shimmers, like I said, I love the shimmers. I love the matte as well. I mean, I had no problem with my eye look today. It was an easy eyeshadow application. I mean, I got carried away. It's easy to get carried away because it's just so beautiful. I mean, so many shades that you can pick from. And I like the fact that you've got your I would say blending out shades, which are more like the pastel shades at the top, then your medium tone range, then you go to your proper colors, and then you can smoke out your look. I love that about this palette. And or you can even start with the darker colors, whichever way you want to go. You can start with the darker colors, blend with the medium tone, then go to the more lighter shades, and then if you really want to kind of like blend the edges, then you go with the kind of like the pastel kind of shade. Now for me, I only see myself using these shades like for my inner corner, right on top, or if I want like an extremely different looks in tone. I don't tend to really reach for this kind of shades unless I want to mix a shade that is not existing in the palette. Like if I want like an in-betweener between these two, then I might kind of like mix it with these lighter ones. But yeah, it's perfect. It's an all-round palette. I saw it being necessary that I have this as well as the ice cream palette. I mean, if you've been on my channel for a while, you know I love bright colors, and ice cream palette is one of my favorites. So for me, this kind of like is an advanced extension of the ice cream palette, if you like, especially for people of color. Like I said, yeah, it is a definite must. And if you never had the ice cream palette, now is the time for you to pick this up. It's definitely worth the money. Like I always say, if you can get it on sales, then definitely wait for a sale, because it's not a limited edition palette, so you can always get it when it goes on sales, for you to get good value for your money. But yeah, it is extremely worth it to pick up this palette. I mean, from my experience today, that is my conclusion. Alright guys, that's the end of this swatching / comparison video. I hope you've enjoyed the swatches and the comparison of the Vigorously palette, and I hope you've enjoyed hanging out with me. If you have enjoyed this video, please like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. And until next time, I'll say